All right, everybody. Thanks. Welcome back to the Mayday Monday podcast. This month is June. We're gonna dive right into the stuff right here. Before we get going into this month's podcast, a couple of things. I want to take a time and remember the firefighters who were passed away, died in the line of duty since our last get together. It was a firefighter from Nelsonville, Ohio. He collapsed at the scene of a fire. A firefighter from New Haven, Connecticut. You might have heard about that when he and his officer were found unconscious on the second floor of a dwelling. The lieutenant survived. There's a firefighter from LaGrange, North Carolina. He died after some mandatory physical fitness training. And probably one of the rough ones we're having a tough time with is a firefighter from Los Angeles, California. He was shot and killed by a fellow firefighter. And a captain was also shot, but he survived. If you guys are following along in the social media, there's a great article talks about his daughter. His daughter wore his turnout coat for high school graduation, and the firefighters in the area lined the walkway while she was going up to get her diploma. And one other smoke jumper from Wyoming, he was injured from a fall and died 10 days later. So again, the firefighting's dangerous, right? And firefighters are, as long as we're going to be doing this job, we're going to have firefighters who are passing away, and we want to make sure we give them the memories and honor them as much as we can. Speaking of last month, in May, we focused on firefighter CPR. Our skill drill was firefighter CPR. And again, I hope you all had a chance to practice that high quality CPR. It's going to be a whole lot different performing CPR on a guy in turnout gear than it is into our civilians that we practice, or a mannequin that you might have practiced on. So you don't want the first time that you have to do that. Well, we don't want to have to do it. But if the first time you do it is an actual incident, that's not going to give him the best chance to survive. So make sure you practice this stuff. Again, that was Kevin McRae, a friend. Kevin will never be forgotten. At least from Mayday Mondays and from all the firefighters in DC. Also, during the last month, Mayday Monday headquarters has relocated. After a stint in Washington, DC, Mayday Monday, the staff is moving to Louisa County, Virginia. It's in central Virginia, about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours south of DC. It's situated between Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, and Richmond. So, took a job down there. Hopefully it'll be a little break from urban firefighting. I think it's going to be a big break. This month we're going to remember an Fdny captain, Vincent Fowler. Vincent Fowler died on June the 3rd of 1999. And today we're going to talk about the man. We're going to talk about the fire department. And we're going to learn a little bit more about him and the incident, and really what Fdny has done since the incident. Today with us, we have Captain Liam Flaherty from Rescue 2, and retired from the Fdny, John Fowler, brother of Vinny Fowler, who we're going to talk about today. Guys, thanks a lot for coming on. I really appreciate the tag that we did and the quick return you guys could do on the invitation. If you would do me a favor, Liam, I think I met you when you guys brought the band down to Walter Reed, and you would go down there and play, and we brought the fire trucks over and met you guys one night. I remember, I don't know if you remember, I asked you to give me some scoop on Chief Salka, to give me something I could get him with. And I think what you gave me, it was probably going to be too sensitive. I didn't want to tell him that. He probably would get mad. So I have still got it. I'll pull it on him one day. But it was some, I think, some stuff that might have made him mad. So John, I really appreciate you guys coming on. And
I don't want you Salka mad at me, just for the record.
Yeah, no, nobody wants him mad, right? So Liam, if you would just introduce yourself real quick and tell everybody who you are and your connection to what we're talking about today.
Liam Flaherty, currently the captain of Rescue 2 in Brooklyn, New York. In June of 1999, I was a firefighter in Rescue 4. I grew up in my teenage years, was in Rosedale, Queens, and I was really tight with the other fellow you have here on the podcast, John Fowler. Kind of grew up together, had paper route together, and were best friends growing up. And John came from a huge firefighting family. His father was a legendary guy in our job, highly regarded, 40-year chief, worked through the war years. And, as a young kid going over in the house, he definitely influenced me. And, I kind of set my sails in the direction of him, and doing a lot of his tutelage. And then paying it forward, John eventually wound up marrying my sister Denise, and then I felt like I was part of the family then, but I was even more part of the family after that. So and then John himself followed in his father's footsteps, like I did, and like Vinny did, and then we have another brother, Andy. We all became firefighters. So and here I am today, 31 years on the job, still loving
doing
it.
Yeah, 31 years. That's good stuff. John, thanks for coming on. If you could just introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm John Fowler. I'm Vinny's youngest brother. I was a fireman in Brooklyn as well. I was in 176 when Vinny died. I came out in 91. I was a fireman and led in 176, and I went to Rescue 2 after that. I retired from Rescue 2. So that's my fire department thing. My father was, we have a family of firemen. My brother Andy is 3 years older than me. He was in ladder 105, and then he went to Rescue 4. Then he was in Special Operations Command. After that, he did 30. He just retired a little while. He might have did over 30 years, I think, as well. And my dad was, that was my dad, and all the people we grew up with were all fire family people. My father was like that stoic, guy his whole career. Had a great great reputation, and it wasn't hard to follow. It wasn't easy to be his kid or be around him, but you had a lot to live up to. But it was easy because he kind of like set us up for it. He used to take, when the physical was coming up for our test, he used to take us down to the Long Island Railroad station, and he'd be making us work out. We were coming back from playing football in college and doing stuff, and it was like the workouts were nothing compared to what he was putting us through to get ready for the physical for the fire department. So that's my fire department end of it.
So Liam, you said you might have some good stories to kind of tell us, illustrate the man that Vinny Jr. was.
Vinny, well, anybody who knew Vinny knew that there was a million Vinny Fowler stories, from just complete dedication to the job to just like life of the party type of guy. He was multifaceted. My job, he had some amazing accomplishments during his time on the job. I was just talking the other day. There was when he got promoted to captain, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll take you offline and they'll give you a special project. So I remember Vinny was put in charge of, we had kind of a protocol for funerals. It was kind of a loose protocol. There was really nothing written about it. And it was kind of passed on down through the years from firehouse to firehouse. Usually the firehouse that would have a line of duty death would take care of the funeral for the next firehouse. And it kind of went like that for years. And downtown tasked Vinny with putting it down on pen to paper and actually making a bulletin out of it. And, just typical Vinny, he was head first into everything. He embraced it, and he was working on it for months. He was talking, I'm in the pipe band, as you know, and I was talking to him about it. And, we're kind of coming up with all this protocols and stuff. And after about 6 months, Vinny's detail downtown was over, and they told him, okay, you're done. You can go back out to the field and start working in the field again. And you know, you can just hand us over all the stuff that you've done, you know, what you completed, and we'll put another captain in charge of it and he'll finish it. And, you know, typical Vinny was like, no way. He goes, I put my heart and soul into this thing. I'm going to see it through. And it basically like took it and he did it on his own time. You know, that was like how dedicated he was. You know, it wasn't you know, like all of us, like it wasn't a job to Vinny. It was a calling. You know, it was what he was all about. It was his life. You know, later on when I got promoted, I was covering in the 15th division, and I covered in the house with Vinny. And actually, I call him Mr. Fowler. Vinny's father, senior, started out in 234 and 123, which is on St. John's Place, and there's a huge book there, you know, and it's got pages and pages of all the oddball buildings in the neighborhood, you know, different construction types, bowstring trusses, just weird additions, you know, taxpayers, you know, any kind of hazardous condition in any building. And, you know, what really made me appreciate the work that Vinny put into it was that, you know, now everybody's got a cell phone camera and everyone can take pictures and stuff, but you know, Vinny had to actually go and take cameras and develop film, and you know, the amount of detail and extra work he put into this book was astounding. It's still there. It's still there in quarters, and you take it down, you can look through it, and you know, it just that was Vinny the firefighter. You know, he was just his father, Mr. Fowler, set such a high bar for all of us, and you know, I feel honored to be kind of included in that, and. You know, Vinny was absolutely living up to it. You know, that was just one facet of Vinny. You know, there's a ton of funny stories, you know, that you know, probably some we shouldn't share on a podcast, but John will tell you some. But you know, just if Vinny was in the room, you know, the whole room lit up and everyone was laughing, you know.
Yeah, Vinny was like Vinny was like a boss fighter, you know, like he always would find trouble with not trouble, but he would want to make things better, want to do stuff, and he did like my father had a big name on the job, and you know, it doesn't help you get on civil service, but it helps you get to good companies when you have some pull and whatever, like in New York City, or it did. And he wouldn't want any help from my father. Like he would get to wherever he was. Like I remember them trying to explain to him, like, Vinny, it's like having a car and walking to work, you know, and he'd be like, yeah, well, I'll walk to work. Like that was Vinny. Like he was, I remember as he got promoted, I remember his buddies would be around him. They're like, you know, you're a captain now. Like, who are you going to fight with? Like you're losing a whole lot of people to fight with, like, as you move up the ranks, you know? And, but he was, Vinny, the biggest thing I guess I'd say about Vinny is like, he cared. Like Vinny cared. Like, you know, he was a tough guy. He was a fireman, the whole bit, but he just cared. Like I'm sure he brought stuff back to houses on his way home from work with people in the neighborhood. He was just like that type of a guy, like that would help anybody out, you know, and do anything. He just was like, there's a lot to be learned from him. Like he was one of those guys. We've had so many friends, you know, die through 9/11 and stuff now. And you look back and but there's some guys that are really like, you know, all the firemen, you could just find that way, but some guys, everybody's different, you know, to everyone, but he, like, the world's a worse place without Vinny. Like Vinny was just one of those guys that would care forever, you know. And Vinny had 3 daughters. His oldest daughter, Dina, Amy, and Stephanie. And I believe Dina was, when it happened, was 16 or 18 in there. And Vinny had raised them enough, which was good. Like they weren't Vinny, they'd been around Vinny for like long enough time. You know, Stephanie's the youngest, and she had obviously the least time with him, but she's like, I can see him in them. Like it was nice for that end of it. Was very good that he didn't have real young kids that never got, you know, like a face full of him, you know. But he's like, Vinny was a lot, man. He was a handful, you know. And he was definitely a black cloud, you know. He was definitely you know, he's one of those guys that, like, anything that was going to go wrong and anything that happened in the fire department happened when Vinny was working. You know, like he just like.
What was the line, John? I love that. When God wakes up and he's in a bad mood.
When God wakes up and he's in a terrible mood, he turns around and he looks down and he just goes, "Where the F is Vinny Fowler?" And he tries to find him, and it just like would rain, like, you know, they'd be like standing 20th due, like down the street for some 8th alarm in some part of Brooklyn. They were never going to do anything. And they would like, you know, a brick would get kicked off a parapet somewhere and Vinny would get knocked out, go get like split his face open. It just was never ending stuff with him. Like, guys, you know, we all worked a lot on the side when we were firemen, and guys would come in and they'd come in, and if Vinny was working that night, guys would come in that would beat, you know, from work or whatever, and they'd look and they go, "Oh, like, God damn it. Like, this guy, you like, can somebody work from, just get him out of here," you know, because he was just that guy. But he was just you know, he was just a real fireman type guy, you know, real, you know, and always like that little, you know, he was a fighter of everything too. So then when he became, as he was moving up the ranks, you know, it was just funny. Like, people tell a lot of BS stories, and stories grow over guys, you know, and the fire department has some unbelievable storytellers that they take over your stories years later and they're telling your story and you're like, "Wait, but that happened to me." Like, not him, you know what I mean? Like, I worked with you then, but anyway, Vinny was one of those guys that whenever you tell a Vinny Fowler story, guys would look at you and it could be some crazy thing. And then it would end and then they go, is that it? Like, you know, does it end there? Or it's like, you know, and they all knew it was true because he had like from everything. Like, he just had yeah, I don't even know where to start with his stories, but he's just one of those guys, you know, that always like, you know, just one of those. I remember one time we used to bring checks home before direct deposit. And I think I almost missed that, but Vinny's crew definitely, I know I had that for a little while. But anyway, they were bringing checks home and he's bringing some check home to somebody out on Long Island somewhere. And he gets it as he's walking up the sidewalk. A dog comes tearing around the side, and we had dogs growing up, and we definitely were not scared of dogs or anything. And the dog comes running, takes him off his feet, like, you know, takes him his arm down. He's wearing like my members only jacket that I had like in high school that I was getting like thrown away, and Vinny was wearing it, and he has it, the dog's ripping the jacket to pieces, like the arm of it. He's punching the dog in the head, and the wife of the fireman comes out, like, you know, yelling, "Princess, like, princess, get off him!" Like, you know, it was like one of those. That was like Vinny's, like, that was a Monday afternoon for Vinny. That was like a, you know,
Yeah.
it's in the fire stories he had where you know, he just every kind of crazy thing that would go on, you know, in Manhattan and things like everywhere. Like, he just was one of those guys, you know.
I can't imagine the competition that had to be going on between the three of you too, right? I mean, who got the better company, who got a fire today, who didn't? I guess,
you know what, we
she was
were
just
all
happy you
kind of
didn't
like,
get hurt.
I think we kind of like, you know, almost like learned from each other more because Vinny was on the job way before Liam and I.
Yeah,
And
Vinny was older. Yeah.
Older, and then Andy was on before both of us for a couple of years, and he was in a different part of Brooklyn. I was in the other end of Brooklyn, and then when Liam came on, Liam was in another part of Brooklyn. Then he went to the Bronx pretty much right away. So we were all just like in different spots, you know, pretty much as it went. You know, another story that just got told the other day. A guy told me about that. Vinny, I mean, I don't even know if this is a place for this, but like you know, Vinny grew up in a firehouse where, you know, there was respect and there was whatever, but in the kitchen was the kitchen, and you know, there was like a fireman's kitchen, and you know, everybody's a guest in there, and you can free speak or whatever. So he's in a part of Manhattan that he deemed to be like the worst place in the world you could ever be a fireman. Like, you know, he didn't like, he loved where he was in 7th Truck, but he's in 1 battalion or whatever his problem was there. He had some problem as a new lieutenant, and he's in there, and I guess there was a big kitchen and and in the outside of the kitchen, like away from the kitchen table, maybe like, you know, 10 yards away, in this massive kitchen, there were couches along the wall. And a chief came in and was like, "What? I don't like couches in the, you know, in the kitchen. There shouldn't be couches in the kitchen." And I think Vinny's going to sit in there looking at him, kind of going like, "What?" And so the firemen don't really know. There's a bunch of young guys there, and he's like, "What?" You know, like he couldn't believe what was going on, but he's kind of like, whatever. So they don't say anything. They all kind of shrug their shoulders. The chief kind of says whatever and leaves. The next time they were all in there working together, the chief comes in and he goes, oh, I guess they all happen to be together, all working the same thing. He goes and gets a kettle fills up with water and walks around the kitchen and dumps water on all the couches, like all the way. So he's like, I want them out of here, has a whole thing. Vinny ends up going at it with him a little bit. I'm sure, I know he couldn't hold his tongue, so I'm sure something was said. And then, but he had a bunch of young firemen, so he wanted them out of there. So Vinny and the firemen carried the 4 couches that were around and put them in the chief's office, up 3 flights of stairs on the, that was like a Vinny thing, it was like that just was him. He was just one of those guys, So the chief came back and Vinny had the 4 couches, that these huge things that you probably couldn't fit into anywhere, or over the guy's bed, the whole thing. It was just like that's like a Tuesday for Vinny. You know what I mean? Like it sounds to anybody now who doesn't know him, they sound like BS, but to all the guys that know him, and he has like a whole crew of guys from St. John's Place, from 123 as a fireman, the whole crew of them like that really know him, and they're just their stories are probably like biblical what they have with him, just like crazy. He was just one of those guys. Like I remember, like we between Villanova and before I became a fireman, I worked security. Liam, we used to bounce at places, and I bounced at the Palladium for a little while, and there was a shooting, and in the front of the place, one of my buddies got shot. He got killed. Another friend got shot. I got like shot through my sweatshirt, like whatever. It was one of those deals. And I remember, like, after getting done with the whole thing and going back and finally like passing out, and my parents had moved out of Rosedale and we were like staying in the house. When I woke up, Vinny was sitting like, and there's no more furniture in the house. There was just a mattress and the whole thing. There's nothing there. But when I woke up, Vinny was like sitting Indian style, like against the wall, just waiting for me to wake up. Like he was just always there. Like he's just one of those guys. He was always like, he cared. And even like the biggest thing I always think of him is like he cared, just about everything. It's pretty like crazy.
So I read in researching for today, I read an article that kind of summed up, I guess, that sentiment. Let me get the picture here. And the firefighter Cook was quoted in the article as saying that he led by example, right? And I think that's probably the biggest thing you can say about a boss, right? Is that he was a great example, and that you would want to grow up and be like that, right? As a firefighter in the job, if that was the guy you wanted to grow up, that was a great example. And again, reading some other stuff, it definitely sounded like he left a pretty good legacy there in the fire department as well. This is from the public school 108 webpage, and they have a section on there about the Captain Vincent G. Fowler, right? Because after he passed, the school has been called PS 108 Captain Vincent G. Fowler School. Again, nobody wants a school named after them, but what a great thing that is.
Yeah,
for the
I believe that was the first one, I think in New York or in New York City, but the first one ever named after a policeman or a firefighter in at least the 5 boroughs. I'm not sure if it was anywhere or in New York or whatever it was, but I remember it was a first for at least, the city. Yeah.
And then looking on the FDNY Foundation page, I see that there's a Vinny G. Fowler Memorial Fund. And that's got a great write-up from the daughters, which again, I have 3 daughters, much like that, so I understand that growing up and raising those kids and how important they are and what a legacy you want to leave with them. And from that, it sounds like the foundation was able to purchase these fast packs, and also the training and stuff that was donated and paid for by some of the foundation money. Pretty good stuff. Again, that's another great way for us to honor the memory of the captain.
Yeah,
if you guys,
great stuff.
Let's talk a little bit about this is what is going to go out this month with the write-up, is again talking about getting air to the down firefighter, and making sure that our firefighters understand, what Captain Fowler went through, and the memory of that. Let's talk a little bit about New York City. I think everybody loves the FDNY, but let's talk a little bit about it. Maybe some people don't know how the city's huge, right? I mean, more people in the city than most countries. You guys were all in Brooklyn.
I actually worked everywhere. I worked most of my time in Brooklyn, but I was in the Bronx. I covered in Manhattan for a while. I was in Queens when I was in Rescue 4. So yeah, I've seen the only borough really I haven't touched too much. But when you work in special operations, you get detailed. I've been in Staten Island a little bit, but I've been all around the city. Yeah.
I worked in Brooklyn mostly, but when I came out of probie school, talking about the hooks we had, I was in on the hooks with my father. So I went to 176, that's in Brownsville. And the captain was John Vigiano, who, was another legendary guy in the fire department, just passed away recently, you could talk for days about him. And, but he was like a training guy, a drill guy, but I think I made like 33 or 34 on the roster, where you're only supposed to have 20. What is it, Liam? How many are you supposed to have? What's the?
Well, there's 20, it's 25,
25. So we were way over. So every time we worked, we were just detailed. So we worked all over the city. We took all the details, because the guys didn't need to be getting, the guys that have been in the company for a long time don't need to be getting sent out every night because of the Chiefs kids, so that's what you get to see the whole, you see the whole everywhere. The whole.
So everybody knows Manhattan, and we know that it's full of high rises, but you have high rises all in every borough, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yes, I mean, some more than others for sure, but
yeah. Queens and Brooklyn are catching up. Downtown Brooklyn now looks like a part of Manhattan, and all on the waterfront there, Queens, Long Island City, they're putting up high rises left and right. So it's it definitely get our share in those boroughs as well.
Yes, but I wanted to highlight some of that stuff, right? Because there's single family dwellings all over the place, right? You have row houses, you have 3-4 story apartments. I mean, it's not just high rises and crazy buildings. A lot of what you have is in the rest of the country too.
Yeah. There's quite a lot of variety. Queens, Staten Island, Brooklyn. Even parts of the Bronx too have a lot of private dwelling fires, and they look small and innocuous, but they're right up there with the toughest fires we go to. The Vinny's fire is standing legacy to that.
Vinny's building, when you look at it, I remember when I went back with Liam to see it after the fact of everything, and he's like, it was almost like, get ready because you're going to be in disbelief, looking at it, and just a small house, really, like for what Vinny had been in Manhattan and the amount of fires he went to, like it would be to me like a never. I mean, it's never when you're fireman, because how you can get lost in little things and hooked on something. You go back later after the fire's out and you're like, I was stuck in this for whatever, so stuff that nobody sees. That goes on in total darkness and whatever, and then you go back later and look and you're like, that's unbelievable that I was jammed in this room and couldn't find this door, for whatever. It seems, felt like 10 minutes was probably 20 seconds, but still. So when Vinny's building was just shockingly small for us.
And that's another lesson for everybody, right? Is that you can't take anything for granted. Right. I mean, yes, there are crazy buildings out there, but our firefighters are going to fires in 1 and 2 family dwellings, and that's where our firefighters are dying too, is in those buildings. And we go to fires and those things all the time, so we can't take anything for granted.
Yeah,
I would say percentage-wise, right around the country, private dwellings are by far the most frequent fires, and where most loss of life is, and it's definitely something that you should never underestimate. That was absolutely like what John was saying. We went there, we were expecting to see some kind of, crazy layout or, some kind of, real problematic fire, but it was really, it was a bread and butter fire, except for the alterations and the clutter, and a guy with Vinny's time and his experience, man, like what John is saying, like, you would never think that a building like that would take his life.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we'll get into Vinny's fire or not, and I wasn't working it, so I keep my mouth shut, as much as we can. But I think like for Vinny, he got CO'd out. He I think he thought the probie was down there somewhere, couldn't find them. I think the probie was out, and he just stayed down there after ran it, because he wasn't sure. He thought it was to them. I think he just got that CO, which if you've been a fireman long enough, you've gotten CO'd a few times, and you just kind of go into like, you're like, I'm just going to take a knee and I'll catch up to you in a second type of deal. And I think in my guess, as I thought about it for a long time, was that he got CO'd out, and then he became overcome, and the rest of it's it is what it is. And then how long till he was found? They realized, and then to get somebody out then the other part of a private dwelling is to try to get somebody out up a tight staircase in a small thing, which is can be a near impossibility at times,
especially without a good plan.
Right, exactly. And even when you have a good plan, sometimes you just need some bulls, and other times and then sometimes you can use all this leverage and 2-to-1 and 3-to-1, and like sometimes that doesn't work. It's like it's hard. It's hard. It's like you want it to be the thing that just goes, oh, we do this, we do that. You go into a fire and you hold on to the officer's code and whatever. Like you go to your first fire and you're like, what the heck, what was that? You know what I mean? Like they might have known where I was somewhere, and I'm not sure. I think I broke one window or I broke a mirror in like you kind of.
Yeah, especially you come out of probie school, you're all jacked up, you're full of, you're confident, right? You made it out of that school, and then they throw you into a fire. That's like, that's not what they did.
No, I had a whole family of firemen coming back. I played college football, tough guy, gonna walk through this thing. Probably, I remember going to the first fire, and I was like enough of these guys, and I was like, my virgin lungs were like, it was mortifying. You know what I mean? They're like, just put finally it's like, just put your effing mask on. Embarrassing.
Well, and even in rookie school,
not much to say, man.
Even in rookie school, you could kind of see, right? But when you go to a real fire, you can't see anything. There's nothing like that, right? There's nothing like that black smoke over you, and when you open your eyes, you're like, oh my God. I mean, it definitely is a humbling experience. Your first, good fire.
No, your first good fire,
Absolutely.
Right? And then you're working with guys that disappear into it at lightning speed, and you're like, oh my God, here we go, right? What could go wrong? One of those deals.
Yeah. So again, that I wanted to highlight a couple things here is that New York City is only 302 square miles, right? 302. And that's 27,000 people per square mile. I wanted to highlight this because when the county that I'm going to go work at, it's 511 square miles. It's got 40,000 people, 40,000 people, and that's only 78 people per square mile. So I mean, it's there's some crazy things in that city. So I highlight some of the men and women who work there. In a second, I'm going to show you some of our favorite firefighters. These are some of our favorite FDNY firefighters, only because they all have a connection to my volunteer department. They all came out of my volunteer place here in Northern Virginia, and I think we did pretty good. We had some good guys that are representing us pretty well up there. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, Andy Fredericks. I was at probie school with him. That's absolutely a fantastic guy. Legendary. Still having an impact on the fire service to this day.
Who's that? Which guy is that?
Andy, all the way to the left. It looks like a 16.
Okay. Where did those guys go? And where was Kentland? Where was that?
That's in PG County. That's northeast of DC.
We had some special characters that used to go down there and ride like on vacations and stuff.
Pete Lund, right?
Pete Lund, right? Yeah. Yeah,
We had
that's
a
right.
Pete Long was in Rescue 2 as one of my officers.
yeah. So that's out. That's inside the Beltway. If you've ever heard of
Yeah.
that, right? That's a pretty active place. Really good. They got a really good reputation. Really good organization in Kent Land. But those are
Who was-
this one
Who was the guy down with the blue front piece in the middle there, right down the
right
bottom? Is
there,
that yeah.
Kanaski.
Oh boy, Joel. Yes.
Yeah. Joel, I bought his house. I mean, my first house I bought from him, and we were in EMT
Oh, man.
class together. I was like 15 years old and met
The brain,
guy.
right, Joel? The brain, we used to call him. He's down he's teaching scuba diving now, right? Does he do scuba diving down in Bonaire or something? He's
Right.
down the
That's
islands.
right. Yeah, he's living in Bonaire,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the Dutch. What is that? The Indies or something? Or
Yeah. Good for him.
yeah, him and Ruth have made a good home there. So, all right. So that's how the fire department. How many engines are there in the city?
What are we? It's almost 200. I think like 197 engines, 143 trucks. I wrote this down, so I'm, this isn't right off the top of my head. 254 stations.
Wow.
I have to include our brothers and sisters in the EMS. 450 ambulances, 53 battalions, 14 divisions, 8 squads, and 5 rescue companies.
Hey, Tony,
So-
go back to full screen with us for a second. Can you go back to us like being on full? Back to just us. So I might as well show you. This is a Vincent Fowler. This is my youngest.
There you go.
So we might as well show him quick. He's off to college next year, and that's the
Number 3.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the third Vincent Fowler. So here he is. We'll see what happens. We'll follow his career, but we figured we'd have him say hello.
So you gotta tell him, right, to expect the black cloud over his head.
Yeah, man, he's been banged around. He's had
a little of that.
Yeah, he's had a little of that. He's got a little of it in him. Yes,
So
definitely.
he's tough then.
I just wanted to say hi.
Thank you.
Good,
That's
good,
all.
good.
He's going down to Duke to play lacrosse, so we're all proud of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. Thanks for doing that, John, for showing him too and including him in this. So we can talk about the fire. So that they went to what you said, it was a rancher.
Yeah.
And
20,
that's a pretty popular there in that was in Queens.
It wasn't far from where we grew up in Rosedale. It was right along the Belt
Yeah.
Parkway there. It was in like a weird little spot in Queens, that you'd never go to really. It's just like, right. It's like a little dead end neighborhood,
Yeah, close to JFK Airport. Like we grew up right around by JFK, and it was in between like Howard Beach and I guess it'd be like Springfield Gardens,
Yeah,
that
right.
area.
Yeah, probably be like Springfield Gardens. I'd say that, right? Would be
Yeah.
the name of them. Yeah, it was a corner house. It was a corner house, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I believe it was a corner house, and it was just tiny. Man, it was just shockingly tiny.
And
So I'd say, and then not that we don't know what can happen. Just what I was explaining to you what happens to you as a fireman earlier, and experiences you have, things you get caught up in, things that happen to you. And other days you think you're the most aggressive guy ever, and the next day you get caught like in a phone booth, and you're like, what's going on, man? You know what I mean? And Vinny was a big guy like that. Vinny used to tell us, I remember one thing, Vinny always had lessons, and he'd be like, just when you think you know what you're doing in this job, you're going to get knocked on your ass. He goes, I guarantee it. Just when you think you can, you kind of feel this on whatever it is, he goes, I'm telling you, you're going to be sitting on a curb after the thing over going like, what happened, type of deal.
Yeah.
And it's true. And
that might have been the best. That might have been the best advice I've ever gotten. Just stay humble.
Exactly.
I remember Vinny saying that. Once you think you got it all figured out, that's when you're going to get smacked down.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the generation either, right?
Doesn't
the
matter.
guys in the war years, they had the same thing. In the 70s and 80s, and everybody can use that, right? That is a great piece of advice. And remember that when I ask you a little bit later, like something that we want to take away from this, because that's a really good one. So the fire was it daytime, nighttime?
It was daytime.
It was right. It was during the day, but it was right at the change of tour, like right after the change of
Yeah,
tours.
maybe like
right.
maybe like a 4 o'clock or a 5 o'clock in the afternoon fire.
Right before
think.
dinner.
Yeah, right
I
before
think
the
I had-
change of tours, and
It was,
you-
it was after the change of tour, 1855. That's.
it was 6. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was a night tour, but it was daylight.
It was
out, you
day.
know,
It was definitely day.
yeah,
It was definitely
yeah,
daylight.
yeah,
Yeah. June of '99. So it had to be a lot like
Yeah.
this right now, right?
Yeah,
right
correct. It was just like
right
because
about
it was.
right about this time. Yeah.
And so I understand there was something going on with the dispatch or something, like the closest units didn't get picked, or but that really didn't impact the fire, did it?
Personally, I don't think that that was the problem.
Yeah.
It was I would say the main problem was the cluttered condition and the illegal renovations. Making the hallways like tight.
So that the basement was renovated into what, a couple of apartments?
Yeah. But there was actually there was a violation or about illegal renovation in the cellar.
Wasn't there like a bunch of Mongo down there too? Wasn't there like what
Yeah,
was
there was a bunch of clutter.
burning?
It was
They
all up
couldn't
against.
put the fire out because it was like cut off, and it was
It was in the storage room. It was in the
was like in
storage
the
room. That had a
storage
bunch of
room
stuff
that-
up against it.
you think in a basement you would just be able to get to, one way or the other, I think, and especially in this thing, and it was cut off somehow. Maybe so that no one could steal the Mongo out of it or whatever was in there, whatever the copper or whatever. I don't remember exactly how.
So the reading the report, it sounds like he recognized that it wasn't going good, right? So he ordered everybody out of the basement.
Right.
Yeah, I think he wanted everybody. I think he just lost his probie. I think he just thought he couldn't find him, and he didn't think he was. He thought, and I think his probie was only on a very short time, and I think the kid was Paul was out already, and then I think he got CO'd out. Like, it's one of those things, like, you always have the brothers there with you, but you like the second, I know me and Liam have always been like this, and my brother, like, once you can't get yourself out of somewhere, you're in harm's way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't go into anything going, well, I know that the brothers will get me out. You know what I mean? Like, not that you're not aggressive, not whatever, but like the second you can't get yourself out, like you're just that's part of when you sign up to be a fireman, like it's just part of it. Something goes wrong, you get knocked out, something happens, you mask, we use masks sparingly when we worked, so you always have air for everything, and something happens to you, it's real. Vinny paid the price, like of just being that guy, and also not leaving,
making sure everybody was out.
Somebody behind him. Yeah. Vinny would have blamed me. He wasn't staying there. He would have been out too, but when he thought somebody's in there, he would never,
So he wanted to be the last guy out.
Yeah. I think he called everybody to get out. He wasn't trying to like battle the, inferno. It was like when it was over and they couldn't get it and it was not going out. It was everybody's running out of air. I think he was part of it. And there was a chief. Another one of his buddies was a chief guy, 123 guy, and they were like, get him out. And I think he just, he thought his guy was still there somewhere, just couldn't find him. And it was like the cluttery, like, one of those just basements where is he down? Is the guy down part of all this crap that's on the floor, or is he out? And they just kind of lost them. Young kid doesn't know what to say, the same type of deal. Like,
so Vinny gave the Mayday.
I think they said he gave it. I don't think he gave it over the radio, but he was saying he had to give a Mayday, or that's what was said. I mean, it was absolutely a Mayday situation. He stayed down there. I know that big thing was the operational time with a half-hour bottle. That's when we really found out. I mean, we always kind of knew that too. Like, a half-hour bottle doesn't mean you're going to operate for half an hour. And they were, everybody in the cellar was low on air, and the vibra alerts were going off. And then I think Vinny said to the chief, we're low on air. We're gonna back out. And I guess basically reset, change the bottles.
I'm sure they were standing in some water too, because I don't know where everything would even go in this with the size of that basement. You know what I mean? Like I think they were down there with the water trying to put it out. They just couldn't get to the seat of it. It was just like a weird, really weird setup.
Those are tough too, right? Because you're thinking it's a
there was a
small
room.
building.
Yeah, it was in a room that, because it was all stuff and garbage and clutter piled up against the room. They couldn't find the exact room. So, that's, and we didn't have thermal cameras then. Not that I'm not, I'm not knocking the thermal camera. Sometimes guys think it'll do more than it does. But, now you're crawling around in the dark basement and, you're trying to find it before it finds you. And then after a while, like there was so mumuch clutter in there. I know it was very problematic finding it. It was in the rear, I think on the fore side was where the main body of fire was. Because I think later on they said fire vented out one of the cellar windows there. And, we've all been there, you're crawling around in the dark and, it's getting hotter and hotter. And and then, running out of air with a probie, I will say, I just know, and anybody that's an officer knows, when you got probies working or new people working, man, that's something where you stare at the ceiling all night and just hope something bad doesn't happen. And and I know the way Vinny was, like John says, how he cared and stuff. I'm sure, that was weighing heavily on his mind. So,
and then you probably think it's a small place. I can extend myself right with the bottle. It's only a couple steps out, but it was so tight.
I think Vinny had his mask off and was freely talking to the guys to get out. Like Vinny was a super experienced fireman. He'd been a fireman a long time, and like just like the things he had seen, like the black cloud thing. That's a joke, but it's like what he had been through and fires and like all sorts of falling through floors and like just everything. Like he'd been through it.
That's a super busy firehouse where he was a firefighter. 234 and 123. It's top 5 company in New York City for the last 50 years. They always caught incredible amount of work forever. Yeah, and he was, he definitely been to thousands of fires. So, like, again,
I think he was very calm about it. He was like, "Let's go, let's getting to make sure everybody's out." And I think the line went out, or the line got left there, but the guys, went out and whatever. And I guess somehow he just thought, and I think. Personally, I would think about it. I think he CO, he got CO'd, and some, you've been in fires where you're kind of standing in, oil burner stuff for a long time and nothing ever happens to you. And you have other fires where somehow you've gotten like, how did I get CO'd at that one? You know what I mean? Like what happened there, type of deal. So I think it's just one of those things that hits you different. Are you dehydrated? Or you like all the factors? It was in the summer, what he was doing that day, coming from side work or wherever he was, like all those little things, like all weigh in to, to be the perfect storm.
We were working on the house then, when he was out helping us with the house.
He was working the house, and I think he was like pulling electric all day. Like he was, just doing stuff, got in there. And, one of the first thing right away, like, just, I think it all part of it, but I think he just got, Vinny got CO'd out, and like the drill and to make everything better. Like, I was a fireman for a long time after Vinny, and like whenever these drills were being taught, like I was always in very busy companies that constantly drilled all the time. Rescue 2 for sure, and we were in 176. The certain companies used to call us Rescue 6. There's only 5 rescues in New York City. They used to call 176 Rescue 6 because our captain was an old rescue guy, and we would drill all the time, and he'd get every extra tool he could get and stuff. So we constantly doing it, doing the whole thing. But when Vinny's drill would come up, if I was working, they'd never want to do it because it was my, type of thing. But we guys learn. You'll tell you that's the New York City Fire Department is, man. You learn from when you get hurt. Really,
absolutely.
Really deal.
Absolutely, and that's what we're trying to do with learning from Vinny's incident, and that's good. So after this incident, it sounds like too. Let me go back real quick. So you really didn't have a plan to get air on a firefighter in distress either, then, right? Again, this was like 99. So
we had something in rescue, like we had an air cart, that we had a face piece on, but it was something we just did in quarters that we just made up, you know, for suppose we have a collapse, there's a firefighter trap. There was a guy that was in for that got caught in a collapse up in the Bronx, and he actually, you know, wound up getting him out, but it came very near. Like, you know, what if we could have gotten him out and we had to, you know, change his bottle, put another face piece on him. So we did have something like that, but it wasn't a fast pack. It was like this big aircraft that we used for confined space with a couple of hoses on it, went right into a face piece. You would just slap it on the guy.
It was, I would say at that time, it was pretty much putting your mask on somebody's face.
That's what you bring another SCBA down. That
right, and if you were good, your mask would be on the guy's face till you got knocked down or something, you know.
So with
I think they were switching regulators. I think some of that was going on down there. So, you know, again, there's conflicted with all these fires. Sometimes there's conflicting stories and stuff, but you know, that would have been something. Maybe you take your regulator out and pop it into his regulator, and you know, I mean, I think guys now are taught not to do that. You know, not to compromise. You know, like your air, and not to. You're an IDLH. You should keep your face piece on.
Like Vinny, you know, 270 came there. Like Vinny, they had guys working. Vinny was just down for too long as it went down. You know, and it was and it's almost one of the spots where you can't have too many people working on it. You know what I mean? It's one of those deals where it's like the fire was still going. You know, the fire hadn't been put out, and so I'm sure the smoke condition was real, and you know, just trying to get somebody out. You know, Vinny was 230 pounds or something, probably soaking wet with all the stuff on there. You know, you're trying to move somebody that, you know, you're just not moving. You know, you think you can be all right, I can Hulk this guy somewhere. You know, you learn that quickly. You know, like,
well, I always say that too when we practice. You know, I'm sure it's the same around the country, but the cluttered condition. It seems like now any difficult fire we have, or a lot of them, it's because of clutter. Because you know, real estate's at a premium. People, you know, they don't want to spend money, have storage, so they just pile so much garbage in their apartments. So when you're practicing, like, to remove a guy, you know, like Vinny was a big guy. You know, me and John are big guys. You know, when you're practicing removing a 250, you know, 300-pound firefighter when he's wet with all the gear on, you should. You know, don't practice on like a tile floor with nothing around and you just slide them out the door. You know, you got to practice practice realistic, realistic drills. Like you have to pick them up over stuff, and there's garbage in the way, and there's tight quarters, and you know, it's
no, and as firemen, when we come in things, we force doors and we knock stuff over that's meant to be neatly next to a door somewhere, and we, you know, as you're searching or making your way through somewhere you've never been before, you're knocking it down in the way of, if you have to bring somebody back out, you know, there's just a million ways it happens, you know, even places that aren't even that, you know, you've seen things that got jammed on the doors and you're kind of like, what the, you know, it's like.
Absolutely.
Cellar fires in private dwellings are like, you know, nobody puts them up at the top of their favorite fire. You know, those are always, you know, they're almost always tough fires, you know.
Oh, I mean, it's definitely something that as a chief, when that comes out, you know, the hair stands up on the back of your neck, and you're going to put guys in that fire. I mean, you know, it's a tough one, and we have lots of scars in the fire service from basement cellar fires, and hopefully, you know, somebody will listen to you guys talk and other things, and we can stop. I mean, it's just gonna, if we're gonna keep going into fires, we're gonna continue to have guys, you know, get into.
And you're gonna continue to have young guys, like, you know, it's the whole, you become an officer. I mean, I was a fireman, but like, you know, Liam's at the luxury now, he's in rescue too, where you're very, very experienced guys, you know, very, like, you're not holding anybody's hand, you're worried, but like, you're a fire officer in any, you know, the old thing, it's like, you know, your fireman, it's like going to the beach, and you're an officer, it's like going to the beach with your kids. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, there's always something to worry about. There's always something going to go on, right? It's something like it's almost,
you can't just let it
think
go
about it that much, because it's almost, you start to go down that way. You know, you won't get, you won't pull out of quarters. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. You gotta run with it. Everybody signs up to do it, but it's just, it's real. You know, it's a real thing. I think everybody knows that. Like, I work down on Wall Street now, and guys always say, like, they compare jobs, and they're like, you know, a lot of firemen like could have done that, whatever. And I ended up doing both the way my life went. but they say like, oh, it's the same, the thrill, the same thing. Like, when the bell goes off or whatever you're doing, whenever you're trading something like, like similar jobs, and it's like sports and, whatever, the blow whistle. And I've done both for 16 years, and granted, stress is stress, and you can lose money, you can do things, and that's real, but there's nothing like being a fireman. It's not even remotely comparable to being a fireman when it's real. When you're a real fireman and you're really going into things to like you pull up to every fire and act like your kids are in the back bedroom somewhere. There's no comparison to jobs to the fire department. Zero. And I can fully say that because I've done both for a long time. And it sounds cool if you're a Wall Street guy to act like, oh, it's the same as whatever. And it's not.
Yeah.
Make more money.
That's right.
You do different things like that, and that's cool and all that. But it's zero comparison for that as far as that goes.
I know what you're saying, and people don't appreciate the risk, right? The risk. There's risk at Wall Street, obviously, losing somebody's whole, savings, but that's a whole lot different. But so let's get back to after the fire. You said, John, that whenever you did the Fowler drill, right, it would come around. What kind of training was enacted or introduced in the fire department after this?
We used to do, actually, we trained it on it. It wasn't like, to me, it wasn't like New York City firemen never trained on getting anybody out of anywhere. Like, that's what we did all the time. Like, there's different ways to do it. And that was a different scenario, how to do it. And probably the way Liam explained it, when you do it, you're doing it on a tile floor and a thing. And you have some guy in the engine, he gets roped up by the probies, ends up being the victim, and you rip him around a little bit. And somebody ties something to a doorknob and makes a mechanical advantage, and we can help pull on this. And, the way you can grab somebody underneath the arms and grab their wrists and pull them out, there's some, the big thing was always having a plan. You got to have an idea, like what to do. Like when and then when guys pull out of their equipment, when guys pull out, their jacket pulls off and their stuff. It's just like there was a million things, but the exact drill, Liam would probably be able to tell you better what they exactly did, because I think the exact drill I don't think I ever experienced the drill for Vinny's deal verbatim, just because I was his brother and they wouldn't, I don't know. I don't know if I ever caught the exact one, if that's what you're asking. Liam's probably better to answer that.
Yeah, bringing a large firefighter upstairs, that became, unfortunately, it was the Fowler drill, and beforehand, guys would just grab onto gear, and some guys did have a plan, some guys in maybe the busier companies or the more gung-ho companies, but as a whole, the Fdny, we really didn't have like anything in the books, or any kind of real protocol for doing that. And then there was a lot of stuff that we practiced in SOC, and when I remember coming to SOC, I think at that point I'd been in SOC about four years, maybe three years at that point. And, I started learning all these techniques, and it was great, and I was trying to share them, and it was just something I wish we would have, I wish we would have gotten out to the masses earlier. But, our service is kind of is a reactive service. That's what I found over the years. We usually react when something bad happens, so it's been said, it's been said a million times about our books, like the book of regulations has a red cover on it because it's written in blood. It's just all our rules came from some mishap or something really bad happened. And then Vinny's, what's great about Vinny's legacy is what we learned from him and, his fire, and he would have been the first guy trumpeting it himself, is that we definitely saved a lot of guys. Afterwards, we've gotten guys out of jams, and we've gotten guys out of fires, because of the techniques now that we practice. And I actually looked at the original bulletin, and it's even progressed from there. Like that was another thing I'd like to send out to guys. Like, don't be satisfied with the status quo. If everyone tells you this is the best way to remove a firefighter, trapped in a cellar up a bunch of stairs, you know, that you can improve on it, and we have improved on it. Like the stuff that we were doing 20 years ago, we've actually we've made it better, and you know, either making it simpler or more efficient, or you know, just,
the webbing that guys would use, right? Back, you know, when that, I remember that being the first kind of new thing I remember with guys being able to
tubular webbing, right?
Yeah, to have the webbing in the pocket, be able to pull it out. Like that's the first. When do you think that was? When did you
that kind of we were using that in SOC, and then
you were using that was being used then, right?
It
was being used at that time, right? Yeah.
No, the job wasn't using it, and then even like
not the job, but you guys were using it though, right?
We would definitely use it in SOC. Yeah, I had a rolled up weapon in my pocket. That was the first thing they told me. And that was used to be a joke, you know, with the regular companies, like, oh, where's your beaners and your tubular weapon? You know, it was like, you know, guys thought it was like we brought it in from home or something. You know,
it was the rescue starter kit, Tony. There was a little
yeah. But even the webbing, I got away from the webbing now. I kind of like I found, like, we've practiced this so many times throughout the years, that the webbing with wet gloves in the dark and with lights out, like sometimes a webbing isn't the best thing to have. You know, I've kind of changed over to Prusik cord now, which is, you could feel better with your gloves, and you can, you know, you can hitch an arm or a leg, you know, and you know, I said we've moved on, and we progressed on it. So you know, I always tell new guys who come into the SOC, I said, listen, we're doing stuff now. 5 years from now, we're going to be doing something else, and maybe you'll invent it. You know, sitting around a table with a bunch of guys in the morning and doing the what if game. Like, what if we try this? Go out on the apparatus floor and try different ways and different techniques, and try and always improve. You know, the firefighter rescue stuff, though, I will say, you know, it's been my experience is that to keep it very simple, don't put extra steps in it, because on game day, when you're in the worst place you've ever been in your life and you're trying to get your buddy out that's in the worst place, you don't want to have a lot of moving parts to what you're going to do. You want to be able to get in there and get a hold on him somehow and rip him out as quickly as possible, you know, unless he's pinned, or, you know, you got to get clever to get him out. But, you know,
no, that's good. Good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And that's what we're trying to do here at Mayday Monday, is all about the basics, and we want to keep it basic, right? We can get crazy, but then you're going to have to recall that. And you know what happens then is, one guy knows how to do it and he's off that day, and now we got to go back to a basic thing. So just keep it basic. So
three steps are good, 2 steps are better, 1 step is the best. You know, like, just keep it really down and dirty, and always have that plan in your head. Like, what if a guy goes down the cellar right now? How are we going to get him out? You know, and you know, just.
So I guess that would really be your things, right? The things are the humble thing that if you think you got it figured out, right, it's going to knock you down. That's one thing you want the viewers to remember. Another thing is the basics, right? 3's good, 2's better, 1's the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
What other thing would you like to get out about the sacrifice that Vinny had? What you guys have learned from your years in the fire service? That could,
I would say, like, for Vinny, you know, just Vinny, like, you know, he cared, like, so that sounds like, you know, some answer to a Catholic school question when you're like in 3rd grade, you know, like sharing and caring or something. But Vinny just, like, cared, and when you say that, I meant, like, he was just invested in what he did, you know, like, he was definitely invested. And I remember, like, if we're talking Vincent Fowler is from my dad, who went through all of us, because he was part of, like, when I became a fireman. He was like, remember my father being like, you know, wow, like, you're a hero. Like, you know, and like, I knew, you know, I've been around them too long. I knew I was like, you could feel when you were like in trouble, or it was, you know, it was not going to be okay. He's like, you know, he said, you know, come a fireman, I'm going to Brooklyn. And he's like, you're a hero, man. He's like, congratulations. Like, you know, I'm kind of like looking at him. I don't answer him. I know enough not to, you know, whatever, trying to change the subject, move on. He's like, no, just, you know, tell me, like, now that you're a fireman, you know, you're a hero, you're a guy, man. You're like, and I'm kind of like, well, you know, I don't know where you're going with this, Dad, but like, I get it, you know, like, we haven't done anything yet. Like, I don't think I was acting like you know, a little D head that you'd be saying this to me, like, you know, the whole, I don't think I've done anything. I'm not, running around with fire department stuff on like I'm the man. He's like, no, but you're a hero though. He goes, you're a hero to, and I was married to Denise, to Liam's sister. He's like, to your wife, to your friends, to your Villanova football buddies, to your, whatever, the Rosedale riffraff we used to run around with, like, he's naming all the bones he's ever had to pick with me the whole way there. He's like naming all the kids. He's like, to all those people, you're a hero because you're a New York City firefighter. And the thing, like the end of it, he goes, so now I'm not saying anything. And he goes, and the lesson of it all was the only guys that ever matter about how they judge you and what they think you are the guys you work with. The point was you could lie to the world, but the only guys that will ever matter are the guys you work with. They'll know who you are. Like, and that was like probably the best lesson I've ever had. My kids, for everybody, I've passed it on, and that's just what team you're on, what anything I'd say. That was like how we live, like that's how you judged, not by the facade or whatever, but like if you're picking teams, are you taking that guy or not? And that's it. So if you live every day like that and you go to every fire every day like that, I think that's the way that would be my biggest thing getting from those guys. And I think everybody should hear, in whatever
That's
you
good
do.
stuff. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. So one of
I just like, if you wanted to ask, like, tactically, like some, I always thought, like, for a fire like that, cellar fire, think about ventilation, cutting the stairs. I mean, cutting the first floor, cutting a hole over the fire, possibly for ventilation. We used to have a real bit hard time with putting lines in windows from the outside. Like, I just thought maybe at a fire like that, when everything's going wrong, just getting water on the fire somehow. If the guys, in the rear saw fire coming out the window on the foreside, just put the line in the window and knock the fire down. Just any way you can, just to make. Obviously, that's not the way we ideally want to do it, but
if you put
some water on the fire is better than nothing.
If you put water on the fire, good things happen. That's always been.
Yeah, so that's a line. 17 things are going wrong. You put water on the fire, 16 of them go away. The other thing I said, like, was Maydays. If the first bottle doesn't put out the fire, and I always tell my guys this, you start hearing vibe alerts going off, you can almost expect a Mayday, because that's when the guy's going to find out he's lost. Because now all of a sudden his vibe alert's going off, and he's got to say, oh, man, I got to get out of here. And that's when he's going to realize it. So that's always like kind of a blinking red light when I hear vibe alerts going off and they still haven't found the fire or haven't knocked down the main body of fire, which, was what happened there. And then, again, stairwell, the stairwell management, I know was a thing there. That's probably more of a chief's thing. But, with the stairs, either if you're not part of the solution, then get the hell off the stairs. Either you're involved or you're not involved. Don't be like a looky-loo or you're trying to get a vantage point. Like, get up or down on the stairs. And I know that I think that a lieutenant was brought out before Vinny, and there was so much confusion and so many people on the stairs that they actually thought that he was Vinny. He actually almost perished too. The lieutenant in 270, and then they was like, no, it's not him. Captain Fowler still downstairs, and then they had to redouble. But it was just so much chaos and so many people trying to get in. And again, that's all good intentions. Everyone wants to do the right thing. You got the fast truck, you got the companies that are down there, you got the rescue, the squad. Everyone's trying to get a piece. So
then when you said, Tony, but just about you guys had the stat about it, how firemen die in private dwellings, and that's probably the most of what exists across the country. New York City's a different spot, but there's enough of them here. Obviously, my brother died in one that you looked at, that you would just, if you give this whole scenario, you would pick a building that you had to go 200 feet deep into, and then it was in a back thing, whatever, and then something like this would happen. You would not pick a 20 by 40 house and then down like a side stairs and, and 5 feet from there, like this could happen to somebody of that caliber, like to me. I'd like you, if you showed me 100 buildings, and Liam too, Liam went to it before me and then took me there. And he was almost like, didn't want to take me there. He goes, because I'm telling you, it's not going to make you feel better. It's not it's just, shocking. And that's just the thing for guys to like, it can happen in anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, that's really like the deal. But if you showed 100 buildings, this would be the last one I would pick that this could all happen in like the basement of, it would be like, to me, it would be nearly, never say never, but it would be almost a never would happen in that building, and even being a fireman and knowing the deal and having thousand things go wrong to me and thing as well. And, and had done the job, when I was fireman, like felt like I was fully involved the whole way in everything. And it was, I think that's just what you brought it up before, Tony, and said, I think it's real. Like, it can happen in anything. It isn't just the, Manhattan subcellar 3 and, whatever, like, where you can get really like, all right, that seems like something could go wrong here. Like it was shocking. The building was to us,
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys coming on to talk about that. I just want to real quick, I want to look at the review with our viewers this month's skill drill. Okay, skill drill this month. And before we go, this is a link. This is going to be linked in your in the posting. Just this week, it sounds like something new that Frank Lieb and those guys are doing now with putting out these remembrance bulletins. This is one about the fire, and it highlights some good stuff, some good points for consideration in this for you to look at. And again, more awareness for you to think about. It gets into basics like how much air is in your cylinder. It gets into other basics in there. So look at that. Again, that's linked in there. It's another good way for you to remember Vinnie Fowler. Then that again, we want to remember him with that. Some of the firefighters he worked with, for them to say this, that's a great testament to what kind of guy he was. This is what it's going to look like. And real quick, another one of the links that you're going to find in the posting is this one to a YouTube video that is from. No, that's not it. Here we go, right here. This YouTube video is from Fire Engineering. It talks about buddy breathing, and it goes over basically what we're talking about here, about hooking up, using the buddy breathing connections to get the air supply to someone in trouble. So make sure you look at that, and it will help you, help carry you through this month's skill drill. For those of you who have a RIT pack, look back to the September 2020 Mayday Monday for a RIT pack drill, skill drill on how to use the RIT pack. Again, these are basic things. It's maybe one of the number one things we do for a down firefighter is make sure he's got air, right? Because if we can keep the fire away and keep air going to him, we can maybe let the building burn down and then carry him out like a gentleman, right? And out of the rubble. So some things to think about. So again, in closing, you guys gave us lots of good stuff to think about. I really appreciate you coming on. The June Mayday Monday is dedicated to the memory of Captain Vinnie Fowler of the Fdny. John, any closing thoughts there? Any closing comments you want to?
No, I think we hit the main things, man. I think we hit them. Yeah, I felt about it. He's just on behalf of my bud's just a super special guy, and he lives on through my nieces, his 3 girls, which is good, and they've done a lot of fundraising and things to raise money to buy more of the I don't even know what they call them, the kits, the fast packs. Fast packs, and the and the kits they train out at the Rock, and they bring around to firehouses and train and stuff like that. So they've been involved in they're definitely Vinny's blood, so that's a great thing for for the family that they're still involved, giving back, doing something. And I think all the other points everything we talked about, the size of it, be a better man, be a guy like Vinny, be like that type of guy. And as far as the fire thing, like it can happen anywhere, type of deal. Have a plan, keep it simple. I think all the stuff you guys, you're more on that than me these days, and I think what you guys hit is kind of gold for it,
Thank you.
And train really for everybody. This goes out to everybody, like training the way you talked about, like don't train on the kitchen floor where you can, make it where you can't move somebody into, or not crazy, but just see how much harder it gets from just trying.
Yeah,
to
we definitely are setting people up for failure, right? We're giving them a false sense of how easy these skills are. That when it happens, it's not going to happen on the firehouse floor. So
Yeah, no, and you can get, when guys get real good, they even guys used to be able to hook under the arms and grab the wrists, and you can almost work somebody. You could run the guy around, at like 5 miles an hour, run him around the kitchen and whatever. It was like, oh, that's all right. We got this
Yeah.
down, like on to the next, and like, it's nothing, it's remotely, it's almost, laughable how different it is, I guess,
Liam, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, just touching on what you guys are just talking about, just, the legacy is to do realistic training, just make it as hard as possible. I always tell guys, fail big in the firehouse when you're drilling. If you're going to mess it up here, so then, find out everything that can go wrong, that would go wrong, and just really, really resist the urge to add extra steps in. Go I'm going to get down there. I'm going to find his arm. I'm going to slip a piece of plastic on his arm, and I'm going to rip him out. Or we have a couple advantages in the FDNY where we can convert. We have a harness on already. We can convert it to like a class 3 harness with the DRD device. But I know a lot of the departments you're going to have to convert the mask. Have all that stuff committed to muscle memory. And again, this job gets real. That's another great line. It gets real fast. You're having the best time of your life in the kitchen, joking around, and then next thing you're in the worst place you ever were in your life, and there's someone 5 feet further in than you in a bad spot, and you got to go get them. So you want to be prepared for that. So
Yeah,
that's it.
All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you making the connection with John and being representing the Fowler family. That was really good stuff. One last thing. Usually we're joined by Bobby Halton, but Bobby was away. He's vacationing, celebrating his wife's birthday. So happy birthday,
Oh.
Mr. Halton.
Happy birthday. So
yes.
So that's it for this Mayday Monday. Again, come back in July. I'm not sure what we'll do then, but hopefully we'll have a great lineup like we did with these guys.
Chief, nice to meet you, and good luck down in Virginia.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Good luck, Chief. All right. Good stuff.
Thanks, guys.
Keep doing good work. All right. Thanks, Chief. All right.